Hey, welcome to another episode of the Evolved Dad Shortcast. Recently, we had a family meal with a friend, and somehow along the way, the conversation started getting towards nicknames. And I found myself getting all caught up in the conversation to the point where I too was making fun of nicknames. Unfortunately, in the moment, nothing clicked. It took me about almost a day to realize what had happened. And I started feeling a lot of guilt. I started feeling guilt because I'm the father who has taken the journey to becoming a dad. I've taken that journey, yet I'm not quite there. Now, even though I say we're on that journey, it's something of continued improvement, it hurt. I thought I was past that point. I really did. So, what's the plan? We're not going to sit here and complain and become despondent over something that I did wrong. I'm going to plan moving forward. So let's talk that through. The beginning part of the plan, the first step is acknowledging what I did, acknowledging what I did to myself, acknowledging the fact that not only did I act in a way that I despise, but I've acted in a way that's leading my children in the wrong way and showing a bad example for my wife. It's owning it, owning the fact that, yes, I did this. It was wrong. And I'm going to look for a plan to move forward, but I have to first acknowledge that what I did is wrong. Once I take full ownership of it, then the next step can be taken, but not until then. Also realizing that what's done is done, and I can't take that back. While I can look to remediate it, I have to own the fact that it's done with. And the next steps are going to be what's the most important. So, next steps. First thing would be at a family gathering, my immediate family, my wife and children, to speak to them about what happened, explain to them why what I did was wrong, and explain to them what I plan on doing for the future to no longer do that. And what's the reason for that? I've had some people with some very colorful comments ask me why I'm so into apologizing, to say it nicely. And the reason is twofold. First of all, when I apologize to someone else, yes, even my children, I'm showing the remorse and I'm taking full ownership of it, which is the most important. In this case, it's not quite apologizing to them in the typical way, the typical sense. In this case, it's more of an apology to their future self that I showed up wrong, while at the same time explaining that, yes, I'm human and I know that I'm going to make mistakes. I want them to understand that what I did was wrong. Why? Because if you look back in your past, you'll have had interactions, be it with parents, siblings, teachers, leaders, whoever it may have been, that gave you a subconscious programming, one that you're not proud of, something that you've tried to eradicate out of your system. And I don't want that to come from me. On the flip side, I want to make sure that the subconscious programming that I'm giving my children is something that's going to help them succeed beyond my wildest dreams. And that's not for me to celebrate their success. I want them to be able to celebrate their own success. We all know what it's like. You and I know what it's like when we succeed at something. When we have that success, we've worked long and hard. But imagine starting off at a different level. Imagine how much greater we'll feel. Yes, we have to work through the hard things, but I don't want to put my children in that position where they have to work and unravel all of their subconscious programming, especially from their dad. That should be the one safe place that they could get that subconscious programming. Set them up for success. They're going to have all those other places that they're going to get the negative subconscious programming. I don't need to be the one that adds to it. That's not my job. That's not what I get to do. I get to give my children that subconscious programming that's going to make them so successful that they're going to have such an amazing life from that. That they're going to have the understanding that there is a subconscious programming to work through. That's why I'm going to give them this quote unquote apology. And the second part of that is ownership. Having them understand subconsciously that, yes, we're going to screw up in life. Yet we own it. We don't pass it on to the next person. That's not what it's about. The same way I succeed is the same way I fail. It's mine. I'm not going to stop at failure. I'm going to grow from it, which is the next step. Explaining what my plan is for the future. How am I going to look to mitigate those issues in the future? How am I going to look to get rid of that terrible subconscious programming? I don't want that anymore. And I definitely don't want them to take that over. I don't want that to be something that's a generational subconscious programming. I want it out. And part of eradicating it is while they're young, explaining to them why that's a bad thing. The same way if you find something dangerous, you have a poison, you label it. You don't leave a poison in your cabinet amongst the medicines and say, no one's going to take it. It's a different color bottle. It doesn't work like that. You and I both know that. It doesn't work like that. You label the heck out of that thing. You put that in its own place. You lock it up with 3 different padlocks. And you make sure that if your kid goes near it, you yell because you want them to be scared of it. You may talk to them afterwards, or you may talk to them first. Whatever your way of teaching your children about staying away from something that's extremely dangerous. But you will stress it in every which way possible. This is the same thing. If anything, this is worse. Because we've become so used to the fact that there is such terrible subconscious programming. But we haven't defined a way to keep our children away from it. And both you and I know that yelling at them about it is not going to do it. But taking ownership and explaining to them why you see it as such a terrible thing. What your plan is to take it forward from here. You're teaching them that, yeah, we sometimes get bad programming, or sometimes we develop bad habits. But you could take ownership of it and plan a way out. That's how your children are going to succeed. But even more importantly, that's how you're going to succeed. And when you succeed as a dad, you're setting up your children on the right path in life. You're setting them up for success. Because we lead by example, whether we like it or not. It's just a question of what's that example that we're leading by? Are we leading our children to a life where they're going to have to constantly work on that subconscious programming to get rid of it and learn it all from scratch? Or are we setting up our children for a life of success where they could build on that subconscious programming? So, when you're done listening to this podcast, I want you to take 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, and think about one thing that you don't want your children to learn from you. And I want you to come up with a plan to action that, to own that failure, to own that bad programming. Discuss it with your family. Explain to them why it's bad and show them your path forward. That's how we become dads. And that's how our children are going to succeed. As always, I want to thank you for spending your time with me today. This is Jonathan, the Evolved Dad, signing off.